Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So today I want to cover my Paladin Healing build for Module 26. This will be what I'm working towards to optimize my output in healing and team support. Currently I use some alternative options which we'll discuss in the gear section until I'm actually managed to get these things to drop for me. I will of course discuss some other options you can use as well when you're new to the game and you don't have all this min-max gear that I currently have that you want to be getting for like best in slot as per this module. There'll be timestamps on the play bar below where you can skip to any section you're most interested in. So first things first, just a quick showcase. When we're in a full party with everybody running Raptors, we're going to have 90% power. We're going to have 90% critical strike with our Mythic Lightning Flash, and we already have 90% crit severity, and outgoing healing is also going to get to 90% when we trigger Reinvigorate, along with getting the stacks from our armor when we're in a full party. With one variant of the build, you'll be able to support the team with Vistani, the Grace Ring, your Masterwork weapons, your armor for fighting crit strike, and the potential to switch to an aura giving even more crit strike, and then a companion with also a mount power and an aura, and of course, like everybody else, an artifact. So let's start things off with our powers. This is the general setup I use. You will switch a few things around depending on the scenario. Now your main AoE heal is Divine Shelter. You're going to use this to heal everybody, the entire group. They will gain a shield equal to a portion of their hit points. It will depend on how many hit points they have, and it has a massive radius, so you can't really miss. Now casting this will cost 120 divinity, and you have a pool of 1,000 here on the right. In order to regenerate that pool back, we use Circle of Divinity and Sacred Weapon. Sacred Weapon combined with this feat gives it Divinity Regen. So you're just going to use them when pretty much they're off cooldown and you don't have full divinity. Now additionally, you have your Hand of Divinity. You're going to mark somebody with these angel wings just by quickly tapping it. If you look at the sky, you'll put the wings on yourself, and then if you tap it and look at somebody else, you'll put the wings on them. And so your Hand of Divinity is going to go to the person of which has that mark. And this is a pretty massive heal with a massive shield. On this build, you can shield them for just over 1.2 million. You're basically adding that many hit points to them. It's a huge gain for protecting a tank. You'll want to give them that shield every time they're about to take a big hit of like tank buster. So it's up to you to learn the mechanics of the fight and when to use that. And then Divine Shelter, you're just using when everybody's taking a bit of damage and they need some heals. I recommend watching some gameplay videos. I've put out quite a few on the Paladin Healer that you can watch. In particular, latest new dungeon is out and there's a gameplay of that. Link in the video description below. So with your at-wills, you're primarily using Cure Wounds just to top somebody up. Let's say you cast Divine Shelter and there's one or two people who are still a little bit short on full hit points. You'll use Cure Wounds to top them up, as there's no real need to cast Divine Shelter again to like overlap the shields you already put on them. It has 120 cost, so if you're only going to cast Cure Wounds twice, it's cheaper to do that. Now you use Divine Fulmination primarily to trigger the effect of Vistani and the Grace Ring. It's a little bit weird because yes, it's considered an AoE power for those effects. So we use that to put on our target and they'll take increased damage based on the Grace Ring and the Vistani bonus. Just be aware, if somebody is in your party is already using these bonuses, including Vistani now, make sure to switch to something else. Ideally, you will be the one using Vistani, but the tank could use Grace, and then you can very readily switch over to like the Opal Ring, which will make your multi-target heals bigger, or you could even switch over to the Lothian Dominance Ring, making your single target heals better. You will have to switch a few enchantments in order to adapt with those ratings to make them fit. We'll discuss that a little bit later, but for maximum benefit for the team, we're using Grace unless the tank does. So we use Divine Fulmination to trigger those effects. Again, you need to be careful with the way Vistani works, is you only use this effect once every 5 seconds. For our daily powers, Lay on Hands for that clutch, oh shit, heal the guy quick button. Then we just have Sanctuary, or we have Shield of Faith. Sanctuary you'll use if it's a fight where they can group up and you can heal them. It can be helpful just to give them a quick heal. You do not have to stand there for the full seconds. Like, you can activate it and you can cancel it whenever you wish. As soon as you activate it, they will all receive that 600 magnitude heal. So if it's like also an oh shit scenario, like multiple people needs a big heal, use this right on top of them, and then you can cancel casting it and go back to casting Divine Shelter. That's generally how I use it. For the class features, we've got that Composure for the Divinity regen, and we've got the Aura of Restoration. Provides a 5% incoming healing boost to everybody, meaning all your heals will be bigger and your shields will be bigger. And for the tank, they'll actually receive a 2% bonus to that. Of course, if you want to go even more on the support side, you could run Aura of Wrath for giving them the critical strike. Your feats, it's kind of a no-brainer. You just go with all these options. However, you could take Prayer of Opportunity for that free cast of the tab, but I tend to find it triggers not really when you need it. Then you're ending up worrying about having to cast it before it expires, or you've just wasted it, and overall it can just be better to have a more reliable boost to your divinity. So we were taking Battle Focus until they make it that we don't replace the shield that we put on our target. Like, if I put tab on myself and then I cast my Divine Shelter, it will just replace that massive shield. So until they make it so that a smaller shield can't replace a bigger shield, Prayer of Opportunity is kind of meh. And then you can take Coalescence, but I prefer Divine Intervention just to give them the extra shield from Lay on Hands. Plus, that shield from Lay on Hands will stack with other shields as well. Coalescence can be useful if you really need to heal them quickly, just their hit points. Usually, when they take damage over time, you will just cast it, and by the time you cast another Divine Shelter, the shield will be gone, and thus you aren't just replacing your shields. And it gives that extra layer of protection rather than having to only have hit points. But that's about it for the powers. Let's move on to our stats. So as a healer, you want to focus on power, outgoing healing, then your critical severity, and then your critical strike. That's about it. Otherwise, you want to get high item level. That'll affect your heals as well. And you may want to go with bonuses that provide additional healing, like this ring for multi-target healing, this ring for single target healing. They provide bonuses that will stack above your outgoing healing stats, so they can be very useful. So just keep in mind again of that priority. Again, with this build, you will have 90% power, you will have 90% crit strike, 90% crit severity, and 90% outgoing healing. The maximum you can gain. From there, it's just stacking item level, but we're choosing to take team support instead. So we move to our gear and alternatives that you can use. So right now for the headpiece, we've got the Dark Maidens one from Master Temple of the Spider, and we also have it then upgraded with Men's Branson. 20% divinity regen, pretty massive. An alternative would be just the Legendary Abyss gear from the Demonweb Pits campaign. For the armor, we have the Mythic Abyss one from the Master Demonweb Pits. The drop rates will get increased on those, so it'll be more likely you can actually obtain this, but for now the alternative is the Superior Plate from Dragon Hunts. For our arms, again, ideally we get these from the Demonweb Pits Master version. However, alternatively, you'll take the Superior Crushers. However, don't run with the Superior Crushers and these pants. You'll want to switch these pants over to like either the Dragon Hunt ones with the critical strike, not the critical avoidance. I don't have them right here. Or these ones from Heroic Encounters in the Demonweb Pit Zone, Narbondulin, that will give the critical strike rating. For the weapons, you ideally want to have the new Masterwork ones. And you can get the +1 variants, but it's only going to be 100 item level difference. You can get these without the +1 and they could be a bit cheaper. However, alternatives is the Feywood ones, probably still pretty expensive, or the mastered ones. They're generally a lot cheaper. For our boots, we've got the legendary Abyss boots. However, don't be afraid to just go with the Dragonhide sealed boots. They will give you 10,000 rating, so you'll probably end up with too much. And that's not a bad thing if you do not want to run with guild food. We currently run with the guild food here, which gives us 4,000 additional outgoing healing. So without that, we'll make much more use of these boots, and I would totally do that, and I personally do that as well, rather than using guild food, unless I'm in a really stressful scenario or it's new content and need to min-max, then I would run the guild food, otherwise not. I am aware that many of you may not have done Enchantments Reliquary, so I would recommend the Midnight Whisperer boots from Hardcore Vault of Star mini boss farms, instead of running the Lothian Aberrants. You'll switch the Aberrants ring over to something more accessible to you, like the Soulfire one, the Soothsayer one, or Listra's Obligation, and then shift some stats around. You're missing the crit severity that you would normally gain through this ring, so you'd gain it through your boots instead. You may want to then not use Grace and switch to, another outgoing healing ring that would then make up the stats that you would normally gain through the boots. So for our neck, waist, and artifact set there, we have the Vistani with the Taroka artifact. Now this causes your target to take 5% increased damage. Just be aware again, you want to only use the Divine Fulmination attack power to trigger this once every 5 seconds. No faster than that. The Grace Ring is similar, however it will refresh all the time. There is no constraint with regards to only attacking once every 5 seconds. That's why like a tank could use this instead, and then I would very readily switch over to the Opal Ring here, ditching some crit severity, switching my Cobalt out, and then we have the Opal Ring, which gives us increased to our multi-target heals. Pretty nice. Alternatively, if it's a boss fight where the tank takes heavy amount of damage and you're just casting Hand of Divinity all the time, like the first boss in Demonweb Pits and the last boss, you can run Lothian Dominance. That one, though, is particularly hard to obtain. Lothian Dominance comes from Enchantments Reliquary, the Opal Ring comes from Master Demonweb Pits, and the Grace Ring comes from Master Temple of the Spider. And then we have Lothian Aberrants, which also comes from Enchantments Reliquary. Now, alternative to these rings, if you don't have them, would be like Listra's Obligation from your Master Temple of the Spider. From there, you could even use the Topaz Ring from the Master Demonweb Pits, or even the Masterwork Ring. You can buy it from the auction house. The Glowing Restoration one, or the one with a little bit more item level, is the Scintillant Restoration Ring. But that can be pretty expensive just with a small item level increase. But very useful with outgoing healing stats and a 6% bonus, which is currently bugged and only gives 5% actually. Or if you're just at the level of Dragon Hunts, take the Soothsayer's Ring and take the Soulfire Ruby Ring. You'll want upgrades from those, but that'll be at least a starting point with some decent options. For our shirt and pants, we just have ones that can come from the auction house. Your shirt comes from Dragonbone Vale mini bosses, you can look it up. The trousers come from your Narbondilin heroic encounters. You can also buy them from the auction house, probably for nothing at this point. So my alternative personal build is right here. We're using the perfect weapons. They give us a ton more item level. They give us a bit more base damage, which affects our healing. They'll give us 3% total healing gain, and they'll also give us 10% stats, 5% crit strike and 5% crit severity when you're in a fight that lasts longer than 20 seconds. So you can run with a build that has 85% crit strike and 85% crit severity, like we do here. This is also then using the Lothian Dominance Ring and the Opal Ring. That's like massive amount of gains. So it's very easy to switch to that if, let's say, your team isn't too worried about the 2% extra damage from, the stronghold bonus that you'd get from these masterwork weapons. Additionally, you're just giving your team a good bit more survivability with those boosts. So if you're, again, new to the content and want to be maximizing your heals, I would go with those. There's literally nothing else to really switch when we go to the masterwork weapons. We're just switching the weapons and our rings. Like if we switch over to the Opal Ring here for the multi-target heals, we can also switch our boots over to these boots, which when you hit somebody with a single target heal, you give them a little bit of a buff. So let's move to our modifications, and we can see we've got the kits here. We've got some crit severity, more crit severity, some power, got some power here as well. For the neck, waist, and rings, it's just awareness jewels. There's no modifications on the new weapons, but they are worth it because of the massive gain to the base damage versus like the Feywood ones, which Yes, we'll have modifications, like if you have these ones, I would totally go with like Cure Wounds right there, just giving 10% to that heal. You're not going to use that power a whole lot. And like again with the older ones, the Feywood or the mastered ones, you have offhand modifications, and you take like action point gain and you go with the power, and then the only other options here is like critical strike. There's no crit severity. But no modifications again on the newest weapons, the newest Mastercraft weapons. So let's move to our enchantments. So this is their general setup here. It only really matters with the offense. Here we have 1 Garnet, 1 Cobalt, 2 Jades. On my personal setup, I have 2 Garnets, 1 Cobalt, and a Jade. We have a Jade in utility, and again, it doesn't really matter what you have in defense, but ideally you would have Garnets for defense. For our overloads, we have a Devil's Precision. That just gives us 5% critical strike. Now for your secondary overload, I recommend taking the ones from your guild stronghold. There should be a merchant here depending on what guild you're in, and you want to be using the wards. The blue wards against the particular enemy types. Like ideally you'd have demon wards for the Demonweb Pits dungeon. When you heal people, you will affect them with this ward. So you're giving them that 10% damage reduction, not just yourself like the newer wards would. You have like the undead ones, dragon ones, so they'll be relevant depending on what content you're running. Now for the combat enchantment, well, there is the mythic refulgent fortification, but generally you will just run the lightning flash. The reason is because it gives the 7.5% critical strike, which you can make use of, and it works really well. When you're in combat and you do like literally any action, like we just attack with our Divine Fulmination, we'll receive one of these lingering charge buffs. We use our Cure Wounds, we gain a lingering charge buff. We use our Divine Shelter, we gain a lingering charge buff. So literally any action you do in combat will trigger the buff, and it lasts 10 seconds. So on this current build here with the Masterwork weapons and Grace Ring, etc., we use it to get to that 90%. Now you may have seen that on the other build, I do have like the Mythic Refulgent Fortification slotted. Now, it works good in paper, but whenever like you activate this buff on yourself and you use your shield, you immediately lose the bonus. So this is really pointless on a tank. They're going to be blocking all the time. You put this on them, they're probably going to block and immediately remove it. So there's really no point for it. But there's no other options to take. When you get the stats are on the perfect weapons, you're just going to use it for the 10% damage reduction anyway. For the bonus one, we have the recharge speed. But don't be afraid to have a movement speed one. It can be very useful in content, especially where you need to like move out of red zones, get around the place. Particular Examinance Reliquary, it can be very nice also to have on your tank path. So let's go to artifacts. Currently we have 2 secondaries, Mystic Bolt and the Marlith Mask, that just give us stats and item level. We have the Taroko deck for the Vistani set, and then we're using a debuff artifact. You want to have a bit of a selection. These are the ideal ones to have, these top 10 or so. Make sure you have a few of them. Then we go to our race and ability scores. So for this build, we're using Azumar. It's pretty much the best if you want to also play tank. It will give you the bonus of 2% power, 2% outgoing healing, 2% incoming healing, 2% defense, and 2% maximum hit points. Yeah, a lot of bonuses there. But you can use many alternatives. You can use human, it'll give you 1% to all of these 15 stats. You can use wood elf, or you could use Dragonborn. For the ability scores, we just go with Dexterity and Charisma. We don't really need the tiny bonus from Wisdom with the outgoing healing, so we're just taking the more impactful ones of that crit severity with the move speed, and the Charisma with the Forte and the recharge speed. So we move to our companions, and as an active companion, you want one that's going to support the team. So like Portobello, Tutor, Drizzt, Spine Devil, Black Death Scorpion. Again, you generally want the top ones from this list, like the top 5 are best. For our equipment, you can see we still need some upgrades. I would get 2 more pieces of these polished ivory icons of the companion from your North Dark Reaches. A bit of quest grinding, and you can get those. For the companions themselves, we have Reinvigorate, we have the Baby Deep Crow for the power, the Raptor for the power, the Golden Boulette for the outgoing healing. But if you don't have the Boulette, don't intend to get it, I would recommend the Quickling instead. We have Drizzt here, and we have the Alpha Compy. So then we move to our mounts. For our combat power, we want to have like ideally 4 different ones to choose from, and that would be these top 4. However, in dungeons, you'll usually use either Eclipse Line or Swarm between you and the tank. For the equip bonus, you want to run an aura that supports the team. Runic aura or Mystic aura or Pack Tactics. They all give those boosts to the team. For the stable, this is what we currently have. A whole bunch of 4-slot mounts. That gives us the extra item level with these insignias. Just be aware we're using a non-preferred insignia here for the Gladiator's Guile. But mainly you want to go for the bonuses of Menders and Executioners, and that's about it. Shepherd's Devotion will be nice for the speed boost when you use your daily power, and Gladiator's Guile will just be for the base speed boost as well. For the colors, you mainly want to focus on getting the outgoing healing one and the crit severity. The rest don't really matter, but I would recommend getting the movement speed for the equal combined rating to item level so it doesn't reduce your stats, and then like encounter power damage and rough astral diamonds. For the insignias themselves, we've got brutality, aggression, and dominance, and that's across all of the slots here. You can see them all and copy there as you wish. Just mess around with which mounts you have. They will come out with more 4-slot mounts down the road. Don't go spending millions on a mount you don't really think is worth it when there'll probably be a cheaper one coming around the corner. So then we go to our boons. In our campaigns, we just want to take all the power. We want to take the crit severity and the crit strike. Then we want to take the movement speed, the damage resistance against certain enemy types, and then we also want to take the lingering potions. The reason I take lingering potions is to boost our rejuvenating potion. And I will generally use a rejuvenating potion to keep myself healed, especially on a Paladin Healer. You don't have like the biggest heals, and that heal over time can just help a lot more than, let's say, a Stone of Health maybe could, or just another standard potion. But you probably want a Stone of Health if you're in new content and maybe you take a massive hit here or there, and you're better off getting healed to full really quickly than taking time to heal back up. Ultimately, on tier 5, you want to go with Blessed Touch, the outgoing healing. And then it depends. If you don't need the Forte anymore from here, definitely take the recharge speed for the cooldown on those. For the Master Boon, you want generally Blessed Advantage. I personally still have to test like how impactful these things are, how often they trigger. You can look forward to a video from me testing those. But yeah, I still am on the fence which one is best. But for survivability, Blessed Resilience. For some extra team damage, Blessed Advantage with the cooldown reduction. So lastly, our consumables. We are currently using Wildstorm Elixir, Flask of Potency, and Squash Soup. Additionally, we're using Zurek, which is a guild food. But alternative than that, you can just switch to your Seal's Boots, the Dragon Hide ones, and ta-da, you'll get all the outgoing healing you need. For the belt items, again, we have like that rejuvenating potion, or you can use a Stone of Health. We have the Wondrous Dragon for the action point gain, not really any need for anything else than that. And then the Forger's Box for the power. It's got dead easy to upgrade it, and I recently got it to Mythic. So that is everything for my build. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below or message me on Discord. Just be aware again of the gear section where I cover all the different alternatives you can use. You do not have to use exactly what I have. There's a lot of variation you can use between team supports and personal buffs, and then all the different gear variations that pretty much have the same bonuses that you can use when you're still trying to gear up your character. It's just, again, you will want to start with Dragon Hunts to build your way up, then Master Temple of the Spider, and then your Demonweb Pits. If you're really brave, you can even go into Xemnid's Reliquary, and that way you can pick up the Lothian Aberrance Ring. So, a massive thank you to all these channel members again for their added support, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.